This is Steven reporting from Vault 105. That's a Fallout reference. Today's April 8th. It's kind of like 4 weeks since the stay-at-home order in the state. A few weeks ago, I tried recording a few videos to talk about my thoughts on where photography is going and where our relationship with work and wages is going. And then I had like a little video hiccup because I was like trying to record with one of my SLR cameras. And I have all these expensive cameras, but none of them can actually output live video to an Apple computer to capture. And Apples cost a lot, cameras cost a lot, but somehow they just can't communicate with each other. Even with really expensive $50 USB cables and whatnot, I'm looking at tether tools. When I started assisting commercial photographers, this is like around 2014, I met a digital tech, and I didn't know what digital techs were at that time, but this guy told me that he figured out early on that not everybody can be a photographer, and that's why he pursued that line of work. And this is the same thing that we see in the market, and we see it in the stock market. It's all about supply and demand, and we see it with college students and new graduates, even in this potential recession right now. Eventually, I saw that too. Like, there was just no path for me to become a commercial photographer, even if I liked doing portraiture, even if I was like really good at it. It's a really big and vast talent pool out there. And you see this with social media too. It's like, okay, somebody starts posting photos a certain way, and then that becomes popular, and then everybody else thinks that's what they need to do because that's what the market starts to demand. And then you see that seep into like magazines, you see it seep into commercial work, movies. It's just like this infection. It just starts growing, and then everyone starts trying to do things the same way because they're trying to meet a demand, and there's a limited supply. And we're all just trying to jump on that next big thing. Not me per se, but other people. And it's the same thing for weddings too. I think I got into weddings because I saw that was a potential way to earn some money and to continue doing the hobby that I really liked, which is photography. So there were some compromises. You're trying to strike a balance. If money weren't an issue and everybody just had unlimited spending power, I think I would really like to just be a studio photographer. That's really what I really love. So in effect, I was trying to mate those two things together: studio photography and wedding photography at the beginning of this year. And that was something I've tried to do on and off for the past few years. So I did a studio session, and I brought in a couple of couples, so 2 couples, and knocked out some really cool shots. I wanted to really push that and introduce that to new clients this year. But then this virus thing picked up, and then everybody's just like doing really slow right now. But I did see that happening between last year and this year. I kind of felt like wallets were tightening. So even before the pandemic, I think there were signs that like things were just not sustainable the way they were. And you see that people have crippling debt from student loans. Housing is extremely out of the reach of the vast majority. Rent is a huge problem, and the pandemic has really just exposed all of these issues in society, and people are living paycheck to paycheck. The gig economy is like really picking up, even though we're saying unemployment is low. It's evident that everybody's just working part-time hours or taking positions that have no benefits. And that's another topic. I think health insurance and work should be detached from one another. And it's kind of just a way for an employer to just have more power over people, so that they don't fight for higher wages, or they don't contemplate leaving their position because they really need to make next month's rent and whatnot. Right now we're seeing retail jobs getting hit really hard, delivery jobs. People are complaining like they have no choice but to come in for work and put themselves at risk. And this is just another incentive for big companies to adopt AI or self-checkout machines, things like that, self-driving trucks. Machines don't get sick. Machines don't need paid training. Machines can work 24 hours a day, nonstop. So while you're sleeping, that truck can keep on driving in the dark from sunset to sunrise. That truck's not going to ask for higher wages. It's not going to unionize and whatnot. The ethical question is like, how much is that labor worth, and who's entitled to the profit? And that's really hard to answer right now. Would you say that the workers who were displaced, workers who are getting fired, they're the ones who are entitled to the profit? Would you say the company that develops and patents this technology, they're the ones entitled to the profit? Or would you say that the company that pays for it? So yeah, for example, let's just say like a big local pharmacy that's in like all 50 states. They install self-checkout machines. Should they be the ones entitled to that profit? And also the cost of the service or the product. If machines are the ones producing, for example, a t-shirt, like a $5.50 t-shirt, which I think is a really great price. If you bought like a handmade t-shirt from somebody, how much would you pay for that? It could be anywhere from like 80 upwards, I would imagine, depending on the brand. But the materials are the same, the quality is the same, and you can argue that the machine's workmanship is going to be even more perfect than handmade. But because it was handmade, you're paying for that person's experience and their time that they could be spending doing something else. Their education, all that stuff, they load all of that into the cost, whereas the machine does not. And that could potentially be a good thing, just very cheap products for all of us, but where do we get our income from if we're no longer working? One presidential candidate, Andrew Yang, talked about how we can harness through a value-added tax on non-essential goods on big technology companies. So we're, in a sense, reaping some of their benefits, and we're paid for being members of this country. So this dividend would be no questions asked, just a small fraction of the profits, just for being a valuable member of this society. And yeah, we need to see if this applies to everything else as well, like $5.50 t-shirts. Otherwise, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you see candidates like Bernie Sanders, who just dropped out today, people talking about the dignity of work, things like that. Yeah, if you want to give people work, maybe we should just get rid of all those machines and then just start employing people to make the tools needed to make a t-shirt. Get somebody to make needles, get somebody to make thread, and pay them a minimum wage, $15 an hour, just to do those things. And then we'll see the cost of the products like skyrocket. But is that really what we want to see? Yeah, I don't have the answer. People at the moment don't have the answer, but I think we do need that answer if we want to get from where we are today to that science fiction future that we see in like Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's like, oh, everybody's like just studying or practicing the arts for their own benefit. There's no poverty. Food is abundant and well circulated. Everybody has food. You can replicate whatever the hell you need. Yeah, it's just all about like personal betterment. But yeah, we're still a long ways away from that, and there are still a few steps that we need to meet before that happens. No, I was going to talk about my own work, but that's kind of boring. It's been slow times. I shot one wedding in January this year. I shot lots of weddings, really beautiful weddings last year. Met some great people, told some really nice stories. This year, people are just holding off because of the pandemic. Like, what can you do? You can't hold a wedding. You can't have large groups. It's all good, though. We're all going to get through this some way or somehow. But I am empathizing with all the people who don't have savings. They have really high monthly expenses. I am trying not to sink into that mindset of scarcity that Andrew Yang talks about. But you just can't help it. Like, you see these homeless people on the street, and you know that they're the most vulnerable. You think about people you've met, people you've lived with in other apartment buildings. Yeah, there are just so many holes poked in America's way of life. We just see so many of these glaring problems now, and yeah, I just don't have the answers. I don't mean to end on a sad note, but I really would like people to think about these things and how we can help one another, and yeah, just be nice at least. See somebody, say hi, stand 6 feet apart, have that conversation. Okie doke, let's wrap that up for April 8th from Vault 105. This is Steven, and I will talk about more stuff soon.